My name's Dr. Gareth Miles. I'm a reader at the University of St Andrews in the School of Psychology and Neuroscience. So I teach here at the university, teach our undergraduates and postgraduates, and also run a research laboratory. So in general, the research in the laboratory is looking at how neurons control movement. And so these neurons or nerve cells come together as groups or networks and control things like breathing, walking, and those are the kind of movements we're interested in. These kind of rhythmic movements that we do without really thinking about, and they are controlled by areas of the nervous system that we don't always think about as being important for movement, so the spinal cord and the brainstem for walking and breathing, for example. I guess my interest really started in neuroscience as a whole, and interested in how neurons work and how they come together as these teams, these networks to control pretty complicated behaviors, all the things we do. So then I realized that instead of learned as I was studying that things like walking, and as I said before, breathing, are controlled by these networks of neurons that are in places like the spinal cord. So that kind of intrigued me, and also the advantages that places like the spinal cord and the brainstem, they're reasonably accessible. So we have groups of neurons that we can study, and we know the behavior that they control. So that's quite nice because it gives us a chance to really understand how the neurons work. And we think, we can apply that knowledge to other parts of the brain, which for me are just too complicated for me to understand. So I stick to the simpler stuff. So movement's controlled by lots of parts of the brain. So it's controlled by the cortex. It's also controlled by the cerebellum, which is the little brain at the back. It's controlled by the basal ganglia. So all these areas are important. And of course, it's also controlled by the brainstem and the spinal cord. So although all those other parts are very important, we're actually really interested in the spinal cord and how it can control things. And really interestingly, spinal cord control things like walking all by itself. The brain can say start, stop, change things, but actually the spinal cord can do a lot of movement all by itself. And that's one of the key interesting parts that kind of drew me into that part of research. So our research is very much basic science, trying to understand, as I said, how neurons control movement, and also trying to understand what goes wrong in disease. So the kind of applications are predominantly biomedical. So we hope that by understanding how the spinal cord works normally, that when things go wrong in disease or following spinal cord injury, when people maybe become paralyzed, that by understanding how the spinal cord works better, we have a better shot of fixing it. And that's key for lots of neuroscience. We need to understand how does it work normally if we're going to fix it when things go wrong, so others can design treatments to target those things.
To my surprise, I found that everyone was standing around in a circle doing hokey cokey.